Tend you well this tale. It is the story of how Malkier, that stout land, was betrayed and fell to the shadow. How that bastion of the light, whose seed has stood against the blight for hundreds of years, going back to days of yore when they were scions of the nation of Aramael, was toppled by treachery. Hark, then, the betrayal of Corwin Fairheart. The borderlands breed men of a different caliber than those of your homeland. To you, Trollocs, Myrdral, and other shadow-spawn are figments of gleemen's tales, mere stories told in the comfort of an inn or tavern, ale in hand to enthrall. You dismiss them as fabricated horrors that only children and fools believe in. In the borderlands, these creatures are known to be real. From childhood, they are brought up knowing that the defense of their land might one day depend upon them. Theirs is the long war, the eternal protection of the lands of men. They stand vigilant against the corruption of the Dark One and the horrors it spawns. For men like these, Gleeman's tales can hold no candle to their own life experience. They do not seek heroes in stories, do not spend time musing over the glories that the hunters of the Horn of Valia must have won for themselves. Instead, they look up to their own men of valor, those who have survived great odds, who have faced the darkness and not been unmanned by it, those whose skill with the blade is worth immortalizing in song, the genteel warriors who can kill with the same hand they use to pen poetry. In that time, there were none greater than these three: Corwin Gemalan, called Fairheart, Lane Mandragoran, proficient in battle, and Akia Mandragoran, his elder brother, and the greatest man of the age, a man such as comes once in 100 years, if at all. Though Akia shone like the sun, the other two cast their own undeniable luminescence. They were admired, envied, and where possible, wept. It is no surprise, then, that when their ruler passed without issue, the choice for who was to be the next king would have to be made from one of these three. The great lords gathered, each casting rods in support for one or the other. When all had had their turn, the results were tallied to reveal that Akia Mandragoran had been chosen. He was crowned and named Al-Akia, king of the Malkier. Lane acquiesced gladly, joining the nation in celebrating his brother. He knelt and gladly swore obedience to him. Corwin Fairheart knelt too and swore, but though his visage seemed to portray a true man paying homage to his king, it was naught but a mask. Inside, his heart twisted within him, jealousy churning, and he came to despise the man that had been elevated over him. Those who turn to the dark are often spurred on by some reason or other, whether it be desperation or a mere desire to see evil done. Their souls are forfeit all the same. Their only will to do as their master bids. For Lord Corwin Gemalan, it is fair to assume that his jealousy was his undoing. It was jealousy that caused him to betray all that he had known. And so he bided his time, watching and waiting for the opportune moment for his vengeance. Though Lane Mandragoran had turned his eye from the throne, his wife, the Lady Brian, had not. She could not bear that her husband and child had been robbed of their perceived right. In Malkier, women hold a powerful place in society. It is a land of witty warriors, yes, but they ascribe honor in strange ways. When a boy comes of age, he is picked by an older woman who educates him in the ways of love. He cannot marry, save that a female member of his family arranges the match. So it should not be strange to you that when Lady Brian challenged the throne and bade her husband ride into the blight seeking glory, the man went. It was folly, surely. Honor is as honor is. Lane and his companions perished in the blight. Their party was overrun by Trollocs and the other bestial creatures that lurk within that foul place. When this became apparent to Brian, she grieved. Instead of shying from her pride and recognizing that this was born of her jealousy, she blamed Malkier. Surely, she said, if the king had ridden with her husband, the blight itself would have fallen. It would certainly not have been so, for the blight is more than the creatures that inhabit it. It is a manifestation of the Dark One's influence upon the world, a thing that mere men cannot hope to extinguish, only to hold against and hope to check its spread. Judging that Brian's grieving heart was a fertile ground for his plots, Corwin Fairheart approached her and whispered treachery in her ear. They plotted and planned. Lady Brian wanted to seize the throne for her son Isam, and Corwin lent her his expertise and connections. It must have eased her grieving heart to have such a powerful ally on her side. When these plots ripened, they made their move. Part of the plan involved a revolt amongst the garrison on the watchtowers ringing the city. The soldiers were to forcefully seize the throne and unseat Malkier Mandragoran. The Lady Brian, or Fairheart, will then rule as regents of the young Prince Isam Mandragoran. But Corwin was a dark friend and had conceived a greater betrayal than Brian's. As soon as these events were set in motion, Malkier weakened as it turned on itself. Trollocs surged and attacked the battlements. They overcame the poor watch left behind and were soon marching on the city itself, even before word of the danger reached court. It was Jane Charin, a young man of some renown, who apprehended Corwin Fairheart, Corwin Gemalan, and brought him in for judgment. Brian, unable to comprehend how events had so turned against her, fled the city, hoping to reach the nations to the south and find safety for her son. But on the way she was caught and killed by Trollocs, and her son Prince Isam taken and turned to the Dark One, a tool that would serve the Shadow well during Tamon Gaidon. Corwin Fairheart had been beloved by the people, and many could not countenance his betrayal. The great lords called for his death, and Malkier, heeding some tenet of Malkier honor, faced him in single combat and slew him. But this changed nothing. The city was still under threat. There would be no time to call for aid from Shierna or any of the other borderland nations. So Malkier and his wife Liana had their son brought to them. Prince Lan Mandragoran, a babe scarcely weaned, was dedicated as a diadem battle lord and given into the care of 20 of their best soldiers, who swore to guard him with their lives. And so the heir to the throne of Malkier was borne south with the fleeing refugees, as the king, his wife, and every able-bodied man rode to meet the Trolloc horde. Every one of them knew that they were riding to their death. Their only hope was a slim one. Messages had been dispatched to the White Tower, begging for a contingent of Green Azure Sisters, whose order is dedicated to repelling the Shadow's might. But Aes Sedai danced to their own tune, and any wise commander must factor in the fact that the Tower's motivations would always remain suspect. Man met beast. Horned blades clashed against the rough-hewn tools that Trollocs wield. Screams of pain, screams of rage, screams of anguish and death. The defenders lost ground and were pushed back. Finally, they were overwhelmed at Sadoc's crossing, and the Trolloc hordes rampaged through all that had been Malkier. The blight advanced in their wake, corrupting the great lakes that Malkier had been famous for. Malkier had fallen. The Trolloc horde was finally quelled when it clashed with the combined forces of the borderlands at Tywin's Gap. Yet the threat of a new Trolloc war was eradicated, though it became the site of many skirmishes between Shienarans and Shadowspawn for the next few decades. Despite this victory, the world had cause to mourn. Thousands of displaced people would take refuge in distant lands, forever turning their gaze northward to lament the loss of their homeland. They knew with each passing day that their land was rotting, that fell beasts were cavorting in what had once been the epitome of human resistance against darkness. They had become wanderers without a home, a lost people. That, then, is the full account of the fall of Malkier. Mourn for what once was and now is gone forever, and heed the lessons imbibed therein.